Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, 3 Steps to Scale Agile Development Using Enterprise Architecture. My name is Elsbeth McSorley, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Mega North America, and I'm so pleased to welcome you all to today's presentation. Just some little bit of housekeeping before we get into the presentation today. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please enter them in the questions section on the GoToWebinar dashboard. Feel free to enter them throughout the presentation, but we won't be getting to the Q&A until the very end. But we welcome your questions as we go along. I would now like to present to you today's speakers. We have Yannick Rudloff, he's the Managing Director for Mega North America, and Rashi Bhatnagar, Pre-Sales Engineer. So you're in good hands today with Yannick and Rashi. So without further delay, I'm going to pass the presentation now over to Yannick.
Thank you very much, Beth, for this introduction. So today we're going to talk about Agile and enterprise architecture. But just before going into that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Mega and what we do, who we are for the persons maybe who don't know us just right now. So we are a company that provides services and software in enterprise architecture. We've been doing that for a long time. We've been establishing EA practices all around the world for the last 28 years, but we also have a strong focus on innovation, and our tool is quite an innovative tool in EA. And we enjoy a fairly good position at Forrester, Gartner, in the Magic Quadrant and the Forrester Wave, all of them placing us leader for enterprise architecture. And our greatest, I would say, achievement that we had this year is the customer choice, because it's not Gartner or Forrester saying that we are a good tool, it's the customers saying that Mega helps bring a lot of value. So we enjoy a position today also as customer choice for 2020 in Gartner Peer Insight Reviews. So that's very good. So basically, we are a tool that is recognized for EA for a long time now. So today we are going to talk about agility, agile projects, enterprise architecture, and understanding how EA fits in those projects, and how EA will help those projects. And moreover, to understand that EA is something that needs to be implemented to make sure that we have a guided, I would say, enterprise agile project that is going on. So I just had a question that the audio was not. No, it's fine. I think you can hear me. Perfect. So the idea is that the first message that I wanted to tell you is that for sure we see that today change is fast. Change is fast, even faster. So we have that quote from McKinsey here on the left side that says that due to COVID and pandemic implications on the business right now, companies had to change very fast, and there is no turning back. Exactly, no turning back. That means that we have seen how fast we can change. Now we have to deliver new business, new services, new things as fast as we handled other things right now. So it's very important to understand that you have to have an operating model that is fit for change. Being able to be agile, resilient, being able to be flexible, being able to have remote, in-person working, all of that is very important, and all of this, your operating model should today start to support all of these things. Definitely the outcomes that we're going to look for when we talk about more speed, more adaptability, more flexibility, more resilience in the business models, definitely is to be faster on the speed to market. So we're going to talk today about value streams, about customers, and to understand how we can redesign value streams to make it faster and the impact that they will have on the agile projects too. Having more customer responsiveness, definitely, greater efficiency, and have a stronger performance. But all of that, it has a cost. It comes at a cost. You have to be prepared, you must be organized, and the teamwork should be set up to allow all of those great outcomes. This is what we're going to see today, and to see how EA can help prepare for these different outcomes that we're going to see. So today's topic, we're going to look at business objectives. We're going to look at reference model, and we're going to talk about the notion of intentional architecture. We're going to see how that differs from to-be architecture. That's a very interesting topic, and we're going to start to understand how this fits in the global ecosystem. We're going to see how EA can support agile developments with just-in-time intentional architecture, and how we can keep architecture aligned with the strategic vision. So regarding that, you already can see 3 steps that are going to be designed here. Define business objective, produce the intentional architecture, and making sure that the intentional architectures are kept aligned with the development and with the strategic vision. That's what we're going to see today in those 3 steps. So just a couple of words. I don't want to do a history here of Agile, but the idea is to understand where we stand right now with Agile and enterprise architecture. At the very beginning, enterprise architecture and Agile were quite, I would say, opposites, not opposites, but going in different directions. Definitely, traditional EA, as we know it, is focused on long-term results, developing a set of diagrams, of maps, of views that will last for a long time. And Agile had objectives that were more short-term and more dynamic and more and faster results, right? So at some point, it had to be realigned at some point between EA and Agile. In 2008, when SAFe was released, they introduced, I think it was introduced earlier also, but they globally, I would say, introduced the notion of enterprise architecture within the global SAFe project. So that enterprise architecture was supposed to manage collaboration, emergent designs, intentional architecture, and to have simple designs such as capability maps to lay out the ground for the Agile team. What we see today is that the best, I would say, EA practices and Agile practices that I've seen at our customers is when EA and Agile, they work hand in hand. They are the EA practice is embedded within the Agile team, so that you will be able to harmonize between architecture and Agile teams. So architecture can provide the guardrails for the Agile teams, and the Agile teams can have a regular handshake with the enterprise architect to check if they are still aligned with objectives, regulations, and all the guardrails and all the frameworks that the enterprise architecture would lay out to support this the enterprise transformation. So that's very important. And we're going to talk today about the main point, that is how we see the enterprise architecture today embedded in Agile teams. So when I talk to customers and to prospect right now of Mega, when we talk about EA and Agile and so on, we see some I would say mismatch sometimes, right? The global thing that we hear is that the Agile team thinks that the EA might be moving a bit too slow. The EA team will say that the Agile team, they do develop a lot of things, but they don't follow the guardrails from the EA team. This is some things that we need to see. This is very classic, and this is when we talk about EA and Agile, it's very much something that we have to address, and both sides here have to understand the benefits of having EA and Agile mapped together. We see also other things that we have seen that we have talked to at the very beginning of this webinar, which is the market changes. Of course, very important. So we see that the go-to-market has to increase. The current practices of EA sometimes might lose relevance because there is some agile culture that's going very fast, and we don't have the time to create guardrails or to create maps and so on. So very important to understand how EA can transform itself also to make sure it has a bigger impact on business transformation. And the last one also, the challenges that we see today is really to be able to break down silos. And when I say break down silos, it's not only about breaking down silos between strategy and development. It's also breaking down silos between agile teams. sometimes agile teams, they might be working on a very specific problem, on a very specific design, without having the global context of what's happening within the company. So this is where you would be able to really start to understand what is the impact and how one project will have a global impact on the global company strategic-wise, but also regarding the other agile teams that are working within the company. So we're going to see that today, and how specifically we're going to see in the demonstration how we can map all of that in one repository. So the slide that I would like to emphasize on today is this one. So on this slide, this is the framework that we propose at Mega to work on with our customers to make sure that we have an alignment between architects, that could be enterprise or that can be solution architects, and local development teams or agile teams that you can see here at the bottom. So here you can see that we have kind of an analogy with different types of person walking, running, and then sprinting here. Definitely at the global point of view, at the enterprise point of view, here we are on the long term. Still on the long term, we design value streams, we design capability maps that are very stable. This is where we establish resilience in the company and to make sure that we still follow the same patterns and follow the same capabilities. And this is where you also would like to discuss about business roadmap, business objective, new emerging technologies, new standard patterns. So this is where you will be able to describe at a very high level point of view what are the objectives and what is the framework in which we work in the company. And that is definitely the work of the enterprise architect. But no, that enterprise architect, when we design a new roadmap, a new capability roadmap within with a client. So this is where we would be able to start designing what is the architecture that will support this roadmap. I would like to achieve a new goal. For instance, I know that for one of my value stream, we could do better. Or I know that we have a customer who is not fully satisfied, a type of customer who is not fully satisfied. Then we can directly refer to that enterprise architecture point of view and start to understand which value stream is impacted, which business capability is impacted, which technologies are impacted, which regulations are impacted by that. And then we can start to build the roadmap associated to that. So then the idea is that you will need to build new solutions to support that. That's where the solution architecture comes in place, and this is where you will build your intentional architecture. So we hear a lot talking about as is, to be, transition, and so on. That's great. It's the same purpose. The way we name that here is fully is really to be able to start talking about intent. What is the intent that we have, and how do we think we're going to resolve that problem? And you will see that this intentional architecture will become every time the project increment +1 on the agile development team. But that does not mean that the agile development team will exactly do that. That means that this is what they are aiming for. But then we all know that in the reality, you're going to have problems on the project. You're going to have technology breakdowns. You're going to have delays, or maybe a resource is not available. So maybe some things you will not be able to do them, or maybe it was just badly architectured at the beginning. So you need to change things on the agile development team side too. And so this is where the enterprise architects come by at a phase 3 to reconcile what has been done on the project increment, and will reconcile that for the next project increment solution architecture, for the next intentional architecture point of view. But this is where you have kind of a dance between the solution architect and the local dev team, where we need at some points to understand what do we intend to do, what's the goal, where do we aim for, and when the local dev team will say, this is what we were able to do, and then reconcile that every time. But this is very important for us, and this framework here is the one that we develop with our customers and is working quite well right now. So today, we're going to talk about 3 stages. So the first stage is for enterprise architecture to capture the business objective. So the idea is to say that we have a vision in the company, we have objectives, and these are the objectives, the strategies, and tactics that we're going to put in place. So building a strategic roadmap is very important, regardless of if you do Agile or Waterfall or any kind of other project type. Capturing business objective is always important. Then based on that, we are going to produce reference models and intentional architecture, design them, and then produce them, deliver them to the Agile team. And the last part is to make sure that we keep the architecture aligned with the strategic vision, with follow-up, regular handshakes, and making sure that within the project itself, we have some meetings that are set up, organized, to make sure that every time we reconcile the vision of what has been done to the architecture. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to give the hand to Rashi, who is going to demo for you the way we can do that within HOPEX, and then I'm going to take the hand back at the end for you to understand what are the key elements of that presentation. Rashi, I'm going to make you a presenter right now.
Perfect.
Here we go, and you should be able to share. Yes, we can see your screen.
That is fantastic. Just give me one more second. All right. Welcome, everyone. So today for the demonstration within HOPEX, we're going to take a look at the 3 points that Yannick mentioned a bit earlier in his presentation. And furthermore, we're going to start by understanding why you want to transform the company. So let's take a look at a capability map. A capability map allows us to better understand a stable view of our organization. That is exactly what you're seeing in front of you right now. Just going to minimize it to level 1 capabilities. And you can see that in this particular capability map, we have actually assessed our capabilities with 4 assessment values, which are business value, capability effectiveness, capability efficiency, and financial impact. If we want to really understand what's going on within this particular capability, and furthermore, by extension in our company, we could begin reading this legend to see how our capabilities are ranked against these assessment values. So for example, we see for business value, we can be ranked from 1 to 5, anywhere from significant impact to negligible impact. When we're trying to understand what are the capabilities that need to be improved that will then inform our objectives and our strategy, we want to focus on capabilities that have significant impact. Then we want to see capabilities that are perhaps not very effective in what they are doing at the moment, and perhaps not even very efficient in how they are being used. Finally, we want to pay attention to what is the financial impact. Do these capabilities have a high or a very high financial impact? If we follow through this assessment, we can see that a prime example and a good candidate for informing our transformation projects would be analytics. As a capability, we see that it has high business value, but in all of the other areas, there's some room for improvement. Following a similar line of thought, we can begin understanding our value streams to really get a good idea of what is a customer-centric view of how things are actually working within our organization. So this particular value stream that you're seeing in front of you details the delivered travel package process at a very high level. We can see the external and internal steps that are necessary to take. So for example, a client sends a travel request. That request is then received by internally through client relations, who organize the itinerary and book the tickets. We pass it along to invoicing that then organizes the payment, back to client relationships to confirm, and finally a travel package is sent to our clients. You'll notice that within each of these steps, we have also been able to connect the capabilities. By doing that, we are able to understand what we do well and where we should spend some time focusing, perhaps enhancing certain capabilities. Now, a fantastic report to help us dive a little bit deeper is the Value Stream Map Synthesis Report. Here, you're going to get a chance to see all of those value stages ranked with the capabilities and then further evaluated on those same assessments that I showed you a moment ago, but this time very specifically for one value stream. So if we walk through the example of customer request, this is a capability, and when it comes to financial impact, it has a very high financial impact to our organization. However, it is not a very efficient capability. Furthermore, we can see when it comes to business value, there is noticeable impact. Now, this report tells us that there is something that needs to be fixed when it comes to this particular capability, and that's going to have a downstream effect to inform our strategy. Which takes us to what I want to talk about next. Once we understand what we need to do and why, it's time to understand the solution architecture itself. And more specifically, what is the target and how will you fulfill these objectives? So let's take a look at our strategy diagram. All right. In this particular strategy diagram, you are able to see that the travel agency is the enterprise that we are talking about today. We have high-level enterprise goals that have been established. And if I zoom in just a little bit and focus on this first step, we can see in order to meet this specific goal, we have identified two key objectives. The first is lower IT costs by 15%, and the second is improve business criticality of applications. You can also see that we have identified strategies and tactics to help support these objectives that are going to be part of our first step. Now, in this strategy diagram, you have more information. You have all of the other goals that you're interested in, as well as another step that's going to detail out what needs to be done. More specifically, what are the objectives, the strategies, and the tactics that we need to follow through on as we start talking about intentional architecture and the projects that are going to support. Once we have our strategy all defined, we can take a look at a few different reports to help us understand what is actually going on. So the first report that I wanted to mention to you is a synthesis report. And basically what you're going to see here is all of the information that I just showed you in a diagram perspective, linearly laid out so we can begin understanding the relationships between these different objects. So for example, our first step had two objectives: lower IT costs by 15% and improve business criticality of applications. We can then begin understanding what are the specific tactics that we're going to employ, what is the goal that's going to be impacted, and what are the two capabilities under question. I want us to pay attention to IT and purchasing because these two capabilities are going to help us as we continue the story of defining our architecture and then defining the projects that are going to support those architecture pieces. The next report that I want to take us to is a Gantt view of all of the different steps that we're going to be taking, highlighted in blue, the different projects, highlighted in gray, as well as the deliverable for those projects, highlighted in green, and then finally, what we're going to be spending a little bit of time focusing on today, the intentional architecture defined in yellow. Together, these several pieces help us understand a linear time-centric view of how our projects are going to be supporting the different steps and stages of our transformation project. And later on, we're going to be able to see what happens if something actually gets delayed or isn't running on time per se. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the intentional architecture piece itself and just take a quick look at what's going on right here. So in this particular diagram in front of you, we're able to see what we need to build in order to get to the next stage. So this is our as-is intentional architecture, and it contains multiple different pieces. We can see that there is a billing application that is interfacing with the purchasing management platform. We can see that this platform then is exchanging information with three other applications: mycompany.com, call management, office supplies purchasing management. And respectively, we can see that each of these applications is connected to an organizational unit or someone that is going to be consuming that information. We also see that there is a database that is present over here. And in a holistic single shot, we're able to understand what are the different pieces that we need to be accountable for. But with HOPEX, you can even go further than that. So let's take a look at what's happening within mycompany.com. Now, in this particular architectural view, we are able to understand that within mycompany.com, there are going to be different modules that the Agile team will have to work on for front end, web client, site services, etc. We're able to understand what are the APIs that are connecting everything. And if we wanted to actually take a deeper look at what that API looks like, we can do that as well. So now this is the specific API that the development team has to actually go ahead and create and develop. And we are able to design this entire narrative so that that handshake can happen appropriately within the repository. Now, finally, once we have understood the solution architecture and what projects will deliver these deliverables, we want to understand that downstream, upstream relationship, and more specifically, see how we can keep our architecture aligned. So the first report that I want to show you is a project roadmap report. Here, we're able to see all of the details of our project. For example, what is the current status? We can see our projects are in progress. Are they actually running on time? Now, if this changes to delayed or behind schedule, then we know that it's going to have a specific upstream effect to our capabilities, to our value streams, and to our objectives. We can also see in this particular report what are going to be those deliverables. Is there going to be an application? Is there a blueprint for a more extensive sequence of events that needs to happen? And now the final report that I wanted to show you today is going to be how did these projects actually impact our capabilities themselves? So let's take a quick look at that. You're going to notice that this is the exact same capability map that we saw when we started our journey. That was highlighted from a colored perspective to see what's actually happening within the organization today. But if I scroll through, we can see that now this capability map has been highlighted to show us the capabilities that have projects that are going to be impacting it. Now, this in a single report allows us as architects to really understand what is going to be the impact of all of the development work that is happening, and more specifically, if projects are not going on time or are going to be delayed because of various reasons, what is going to be the impact on our capabilities? So today we've had a chance to see how strategy planning and solution architecture can work hand in hand to define new and intentional architecture, and then how that intentional architecture is going to be considered by Agile teams as guardrails for new development. I'm going to go ahead and hand this back to Yannick so that he can tie it all together, and then we'll wrap up this webinar today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rashi, for this demonstration. You showed a lot of good things that I think are very interesting to study when we start designing strategy and value streams and how they connect to the enterprise strategy and to the intentional architecture that you showed us and to the project at the end. I think this makes a lot of sense. Do not hesitate to ask any questions in the question box regarding the demonstration that we just did. I'm sure you might have a lot of questions. Do not hesitate to do that. We're more than happy to take those questions at the end of the webinar. Perfect. So one of the elements that I would like to discuss also about today is about benefits. So definitely we hear a lot of, not a lot, but we hear sometimes a couple of prospect customers asking us about the value. What is the value of bringing enterprise architecture within the agile development? That's very important. So the architecture is the enterprise architecture team is really here to break down some silos, really being able to make sure that the strategic vision is brought down into the architecture, and making sure that we have a greater visibility of the overall project and how it fits the company objective. Really being able to say that if a team is working on a new API or a new I would say a new component, that we know that this API is being built and that we will be able to share that with all the team. Avoiding rework is very important. One of the key points of enterprise architecture is to talk about reuse of data. So definitely the reuse of data, the reuse of APIs, the reuse of components that have been already built is a key element. In enterprise architecture, we think about data, for instance. We know that data is very important and that we need to carry it very, very well and to manage it very, very well. So to understand, for instance, where is my data stored, where is it exchanged, and so on, and not to avoid many rework on building new APIs to share again the same data and again the same data. So this is where architecture will avoid rework and produce new, I would say, reusability report showing you if you need an API providing for you the customer data, you can reuse something that is already existing. And finally, comply with policies. We've seen so many policies that we've helped customers comply to right now, like HIPAA, like GDPR, CCPA, and so on. It's very important. It is there that the EA team will be able to discuss about policies. We do that in one way, but the policy requires us to do it in another way. So we have to comply with that. So this is very important. 3 key benefits that EA team will bring into Agile development that we see the most of the case with our customers and prospects. So our idea here is to take kind of a view of a gardener, right? The enterprise architecture has a gardening mindset. For sure, when we start to help an agile project as an enterprise architect, this is not the time where we will start to build an intentional architecture or start to build a business capability map or start to build the value streams. These things, they have to be done beforehand. So it's really about preparedness, being able to prepare to be prepared to be a business partner and to bring a strategic vision. So when we think about that, it's being able to have a set of capabilities, a set of value streams, a set of strategies that we want to follow, and making sure that these things, these assets are reviewed every year, that these assets are assessed every year, and making sure that we are fully prepared to support the teams that are going to develop things. And definitely, we will need to take care of the garden, to take care of what we are building. So being able to provide architecture guardrails to the teams regarding technologies, regarding policies, regarding everything, based on those capabilities and based on this vision. And then at the end, of course, being able to work with the dev team, facilitate adoption of new practices, avoiding roadblocks, preparing to avoid roadblocks is important, and this is where we will also be able to have some value from the EA team to the Agile team also. So what I wanted also to add here is really about balance, right? So we see that in the practices that we help, sometimes architecture is too disconnected from the development team, and sometimes the architecture team is too involved within the agile development. The idea here is to find the right balance, to find the moment where we are at the right point between being too disconnected in the ivory tower or being too fragmented within the agile team. So we've seen 2 things. If architecture is too disconnected from the reality, they will produce intentional architecture that you will never be able to provide. That's to realize. That's an enormous problem. And then again, if the architecture is too emphasized on the programs and the project, they will only be focused on the architecture of one project and never have a greater look, a step back to understand the bigger picture. So this is where the balance between emergent design and intentional architecture is the key. So the balance between EA and Agile is the key. It is not the same for every company. It is not the same for everybody. It depends on the profile of the enterprise architecture that you will have also. This is clear, but the balance has to be found there, and that's it. That is very important. So definitely what we think here and what we see in the market is that your emergent design that are going to be built by the Agile team they are for tactical project. You have a project, you design your emergent design. And the intentional architecture is to bring here the bigger picture. So with the EA, we have to be able to understand how these emergent design, they will fit within the global perspective. And if they fit, and also if there is gaps. And this is where the discussion will start between the enterprise architecture and the development team to really be able to find gaps and to resolve them and to be able to advance and to move on hand in hand. So definitely my last point here on this slide is one of the key. Enterprise architects needs to determine the best way to interact with the dev team, hence improving the balance between intentional architecture and emergent design. From the way I see that and the way we've seen that done at our customers, I think that one of the most important thing is that we need to have regular meetings. I've seen many times enterprise architecture teams who wanted to have tooling to be able to take an intentional architecture, click on a button, and that this intentional architecture would be built automatically by a team. That's one solution. If the EA team is there to design directly things for the Agile team, but usually the best practice is really to have kind of a meeting every sprint, every week on a regular basis to understand what did we build, how does that fit in our global picture, solve gaps. And this is where the machine we will help you at a certain degree, but you will have to have a really architecture mindset to start to start doing that. All right, so the key takeaways we have for today, before we go to the questions, I see that we have a lot of questions today. That's great. Do not hesitate to ask more. I'm more than happy to continue the discussion on that. So the key takeaways is that enterprise architecture has a seat in this discussion, and that is very important. The role of the enterprise architect is really to drive strategically the developments that we're going to have, align them, and definitely align business and IT. This is clear. This is very important. The most problems that we see that starts to occur is definitely excessive redesign and delays. For instance, you want to reuse, you don't want to redesign every time. This is definitely a big advantage of using EA. Making sure that you develop in collaboration, not in silos, making sure that what you develop fits in the greater scheme of things, making sure that you do economies of scale in reusing components, and making sure that everything that you will do, you will be able to integrate it, that everything will be integrated globally inside the different projects that you're going to run. So definitely EA should work hand in hand, providing reference models. Reference models, we talked today about architecture diagrams, but it can be data models, it can be UML diagrams. I've seen some questions about processes. We're going to come to that in a minute, but definitely processes can also be part of that. This is, of course, also a question that we're going to have. EA should manage a portfolio of standard technologies and identified patterns that can be reused. Definitely being able to say that these are the technologies that we're going to use, these are the technologies that we have tested and that are recommended, and also being able to have patterns. We would like to be able to do authentication with SIML on Azure. How do we do that? What's the best pattern to do it? What do we use? Which technologies? These are the kind of things that automatically should be built within the EA tool. Sharing the strategic roadmap is one of the key elements of the EA tool. Being able to have the roadmap that Rashi shared with us before, connected with the intentional architecture, what we intend to do, and that everybody is aligned. These are our objectives. This is the goals that we have. This is what we want to build. Are we all aligned? And then we can move on from there. More governance, of course, outside of the EA team and let local teams design their own architecture, definitely. So EA team is not here to say the way things have to be built. This is definitely not the point. The dev local teams, they have to be creative. They have to build their own solutions and to find their own solutions. EA team is here to guide and is here to provide guardrails and policies, not to build things instead of the Agile team. Definitely not. And of course, establish balanced trade-offs between intentional architecture and emergent design. So today we've talked about that in 40 minutes. It's a first discussion that we have. Of course, we have a lot of new things that we provided on this topic at Mega. Blog posts, we have ebooks, we have videos, but we can also define specific demonstration presentations adapted to your context to make sure that you actually have benefits from these key takeaways that we had from other projects that are aligning EA and Agile teams. So do not hesitate. We have a lot of more content to share, and we can also provide customized presentation for your companies. The last thing I would like to say to you also before we go to the question and answers, we have a kind of a new program at Mega where you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, test with your own data our solution. So definitely today you saw a quick demonstration of what we can do, but definitely you would like to test things. You like to make sure that you go a bit further on this topic. So you can sign up for a free trial, 30 days, test your data and leverage some out-of-the-box reports that you can do. So to that, you can simply go to our website. There is a button, free trial. Click on it, www.mega.com. Click on the free trial button and submit for our new free trial. All right, let's move on to the questions. I can see we already have a couple of questions. I will try to take them all within the next minutes. So the first question is, what are the motivators on each team role? Local dev team, solution architects, and EA architects. So I believe if I just go back a little bit on my slide, that this question refers to this particular slide. And here, the different motivators or the different motivation is that enterprise architects, they have to have the global picture. They are the keeper of the garden. They have to make sure that we align between strategy and what is going to be built. Solution architects are the persons who are in charge of keeping everything, I would say, reusable and that everything fits in the greater scheme of things. So that, for instance, as I said before, if you are designing a new API, the solution architect will say to you, okay, should you build a new API, or maybe can you reuse something that already exists because this has already been built by somebody else in the past. So these guys, they are definitely here to ease the developments and to make sure that we build things in the right way. And the local dev team, their motivation here, of course, is to build the solutions, is to build the new designs, and they have to make sure they are fast, that what they produce is at a high level of standards. So here they will be helped by the solution architects to make sure that they reuse and that they will be able to find help in what they are doing. So the other question that I have is that so the business architecture part is light, no link between process and capability, and then the other question is the same, no process scope definition. So in that case, we decided to focus more on a value stream rather than processes. Of course, processes are very important. Design the processes and making sure that your processes are up to date and that you provide these business processes to the development team so that they can understand the business context of what they are building is one of the key. And we have discussed that in previous webinars too. But today we decided to focus more on value stream capabilities and how this would fit in the other information. But definitely processes are in scope for that, definitely, and they should be part also of the architecture. So the next question that I have is, can you put some light on the strategic roadmap by EA and also how you will differentiate here between EA and portfolio architecture? As it seems in your demo, EA and portfolio architecture are blended together. Yeah. So the idea is that we talk about portfolio usually when we talk about the state of the company, how it is today. Usually, it's not always the case, but it's a bit seen like that. I have a portfolio of application, I have a portfolio of technology, I have a portfolio of processes, of strategies, and that's just the way I see things and how things are connected as of today. Then the architecture will help you to transform that portfolio. You have a portfolio as it is today, you have strategy, objectives, and then the architecture on top of that will help you to transform that portfolio all along the way to manage your objective. If one of your objectives is to reduce the number of applications, then you have your portfolio, objectives, and new architectures that you're gonna build into those different things. So I would say that when I talk about strategic roadmap EA and how we difference EA and portfolio architecture, portfolio is more focused on inventory, and your EA and roadmap would be here to help you transform your inventory and to build those new design. Then the next question is about intentional architecture. How do I define the intentional architecture? So the intentional architecture for us is really about what do we intend to build in the company regarding the objectives that we have. It is kind of a view that is not a to be, because we don't know what the to be will be. It is a project. That's the way we think things should be. Then at the end of the day, definitely the Agile team looks at that and will produce some new assessment. Maybe you will have to realign some things. Maybe some things are not possible to build because you have you have a technical constraint or not enough time. But definitely the intentional architecture is the plan. It is at a high level point of view, what do you want to build? So here we have a definition. We will share the slide with you, of course, after the presentation. But here the intentional architecture is defined as a plan-based, high-level objectives that we're going to build together. Okay, so the next question is regarding to the trial information. I think that Elsbeth shared the trial information in the chat. You will be able to find a link in the information that we're going to share with you after this webinar to try out our solution. So we have another question regarding value stream and processes. So it's about value streams and orchestrating process. So definitely value streams are more high level. So the value streams, the way it's set up by the Business Architecture Guild and also by the majority of the persons here in the EA, usually we see the value streams as being more functional. They are not organizational based, meaning that if your organization changes, they will not change. More stable, more resilient in time. So at any point, your value streams, they will be your steps that you're going to take at a very high level point of view to understand what you are going to provide, and these ones are tied to the capability. Then, of course, these value streams are I would say, connected to your process. At some point, you need to understand that if you have a value stream to support one customer at a very high level point of view, when you drill down into that value stream, you need to find out how you're going to do it. The value stream is going to answer the question about the what and the why, and the who is going to be supported, and the process is going to answer the how. How do we do to support that? With which team? With which technologies? With which functionality needed? that's how we see that in our vision. But then again, I'm more than happy to do a deep dive with you on this topic and to show you a bit more data on that. All right, so a couple of other questions that I had on that one, and I think that's the last one that I will take here is about projects. So how do we make sure that the projects are up to date in the EA tooling? Yes. So definitely this is a wide question. Then again, the E8 tool is not there to be able to track at a very granular way all the different steps of a project. This is not the intent. The intent of the EA tool and mapping projects in the EA tool is to understand at a high level point of view again, what are the projects, what are the programs that I have, what do they impact, what are the deliverables, what are the timings, and how are they connected to my strategy. And then this will be sent over through APIs in our solution, technically through an API to another tool that will manage the project on a day-to-day basis, so a real execution project management tool. And then this project execution management tool will send us back the information into the EA tool to talk about the status. Is that project late? Is that project on time? Is that project delayed for any reasons? So that the enterprise architect can start to understand the impact of a delay of a project on the global architecture and how it will impact our strategy and how it will impact the whole company in the end. So this is where you want to be able to go granular in the definition of a project, maybe in another tool, then go have this information come back into Apex to go up and making sure that you have an alignment between your strategy and your project. All right, I think I took all the questions that we had. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to go here. Do not hesitate to contact us, Rashi or myself. Here you have our email address. We're gonna share with you the slides, the video of this webinar, and the link to request a free trial on our website. So thank you very much for your attention during this hour of a webinar. And Elspeth, I'll let you do the wrap up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Yannick, for that excellent presentation. Thank you, Rashi, for that wonderful demo. We really want to appreciate everyone's time. We are so glad you came to our webinar today, and we appreciate all the questions and all the engagement. Like Yannick said, I will be sharing a recording to this presentation with everyone who not only joined us today, but everyone who registered. So if you had colleagues that possibly registered but weren't able to come, anyone who registered gets the recording. I will share the link to the free trial, and if more questions pop up later today, tomorrow, the next 3 days, feel free to email myself, Yannick, or Rashi, and we would love to talk with you and get you answers to any more questions you think of. Okay, everyone, we're going to end it there. We appreciate your time and wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Take care.